Hi, Ben and Nathan. I hope this message finds you well. Please feel free to use this email on the podcast. Yep. Okay. My starting LSAT score was 137/138. I am currently scoring 153/154. That's about a 15/16 point jump.
Okay.
Actually, it's a 15/17 point jump, Ben.
Yeah. If you want to go from 137 to 154. Yep.
Yeah. I started off pretty low and have made my way up to an average score, but I don't think the mid 150s is competitive. I've already made about a 15-point jump. Is it possible to make an even bigger jump to the low 160s or mid 160s? Part of me thinks people don't make a bigger jump than that. Another part of me thinks there's still a lot to learn and I can jump an additional 7 points or so. Is it more realistic to keep the mid 150s score? Scoring 7 or more points more would make it a 20-something point jump. Yeah. I just don't know how realistic that is. There isn't a certain question stem that I get wrong. I get a little bit of everything wrong. Best, score curious. I think Annalisa, it said refer to me as anything you'd like without my name. So I think Annalisa named this person score curious.
Well, the short answer to your question is it's not unreasonable to keep going. I always think of it as you're at where you're at, and it could be day 1 or day 365. I don't care. Where are you at? Are you willing to keep studying? Let's keep going.
These days, with the LSAT demon, 20-point improvements are not even that rare. We see it all the time. We have letters on every show, it seems like, with people who improved by 20 points.
Mm-hmm.
And score curious here, okay, let's say it was a 25-point jump that we were talking about or a 30-point jump that we were talking about. If score curious hadn't already improved by 15 points or whatever that is, then I would go, boy, 30-point improvement, pretty tough. Starting at 137, how likely is it that you're going to make it to 167? Well, not everybody's going to make it to 167 from 137. It's going to be a grind.
Yeah.
But score curious has already improved by 15 or 16 points. So the 20-point or 25-point or 30-point jump is no longer even relevant. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? This is someone who already has made the improvement. This is the same, I'm saying the same thing you were saying, Ben, in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Right now, you're a 153, 154. And when we see people come to us with a 153, 154, we almost always are like, oh yeah, 160s, no problem.
Yep.
If you can score in the mid 150s, you should be able to make it to the 160s. I don't know how much preparation Score Curious has done. If this was like, well, I've already done every LSAT 3 times.
Sure.
Then I might be like, okay, probably need to change the way you've been studying to try to make it to 160 something. Not impossible, but it would make it less likely if you had already done every single test.
Yes, if you've squeezed the orange dry,
right?
We're gonna
but if
say,
you've only
okay.
done normal, probably what, 10, 15, 20 tests, something like that a typical student would have done in this situation. If you've been studying for 3 months or 6 months or something like that, absolutely no reason why you can't make it into the 160s.
Yeah. And I would even say to those who have just studied as hard as they possibly can and they feel like they've hit this ceiling, so many times I start talking to them one-on-one and you're like, wait, you're not reviewing? Or wait, you're doing every question in the section and you're scoring in the 150s? Like, there is some very simple changes that could dramatically change the way you learn, but you're like pounding the pavement in the wrong way. You're like trying to ride your bike in first gear and you're like, I can't get any faster. And you're sweating profusely because you're not doing it the right way. Up the gear.
Ben, how likely is it to flip heads 4 times in a row?
a good question. Is it 12.5%, something like that? 50 times 50 times 50 times 50. That's what 50%, half times a half times a half times a half. Yeah.
1 in 16, right?
1 in
Half
16.
times a half times a half times a half, 1 in 16. So
Okay.
is it unlikely to flip heads 4 times in a row? Yes. How likely is it to flip heads 4 times in a row if you've already flipped heads twice?
Well, now it's only 25%, right? Or
Now it's
gone
1
up
in
to
4.
Yeah, 1 in 4.
Right? And if you've flipped heads 3 times in a row,
Now you
then
have a
flipping
50-50
heads 4
shot.
times in a row is 1 in 2. So that's Score Curious is not thinking about it correctly, right? Score Curious is already halfway there. So you're already more than halfway there into the 160s. So the fact that you started at 137 is irrelevant. I don't give a shit. I care where you are now and where you have to get to. And so, yeah, it's, this is not to shit on pre-law advisors for the entire show, but I think that is a thing that I've heard out there from pre-law advisors, like, most people don't improve their LSAT score by that much. That's that's damaging, very dangerous advice to give to a student. Look at Score Curious as like wanting to be realistic.
Yeah.
They say it multiple times in this email. Should I be realistic? Should I just keep, look at that. Is it more realistic to keep the mid 150s score? In other words, like, should I just give up? Should I just stop here?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. You should not go to law school with a score in the low 150s. You need to get a score in the 160s, then go to law school. Thanks for writing in. No reason why you can't make it to the 160s. Hey, you want to do another thought experiment? I don't know how much time you have today. I have all the time in the world.
Go for it.
I heard this on the podcast the other day. It was on a poker podcast that I listened to.
Sure.
Take a roulette wheel, put the ball in whatever given number, okay? Flip a coin, and if it's heads, the ball goes clockwise, and if it's tails, the ball goes counterclockwise. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Every time the ball enters a new slot on the wheel, you mark that slot, okay? Like you paint it, or the ball has paint on it or whatever. And so the slot gets marked.
Sure.
I'm trying to remember how the question was posed. It's an interesting thought experiment. This has absolutely nothing to do with anything. It's just a fun puzzle.
Welcome to the Thinking LSAT podcast.
What are the odds? Say you had to pick a slot that was going to be the least likely slot to be painted last. Right?
The least likely?
The least likely. Or, well, which one do you think is most likely?
To be painted last?
Mm-hmm. Just for simplicity, let's say it goes from 0 to 60. I'm ignoring the double 0. Let's say it goes from 0 to 60, and we start in the 0.
Start on the 0.
Okay. So 1 is on one side and 60s.
How many?
No. We're not spinning the wheel. We're flipping a coin, and then the ball either goes one way or the other way.
Oh.
So on the first flip, it's going to be in the 1 or the 60.
Well, in my mind, it's going to be the one that's the furthest away, because you can be going back and forth.
It is going to go back and forth, right? It's going to take a long ass time to paint every single slot all the way around the wheel.
Yeah.
And the ball's going to go.
You're going to get a lot of paint up top.
The ball's going to go like this, right?
Yeah.
Around and around. Okay. Yeah. So you think the ones right next to the 0 are the more likely to get hit first, because that's where the ball starts?
Oh, is that interesting? So you're saying that, like, once you go in one direction,
intuitively, everyone thinks the one, the like the 30, right, is that's the one you would pick if I forced you.
So it's one or the other. Is that
which one's going to get painted last? Everybody would say, well, the 30. or the 29 or whatever it is. Like they would look at the other side of the wheel and say, well, the ball has to get all the way there to get it.
Yeah.
So therefore it has to be, you know, it's most likely to be painted last. Yeah. That's what everybody thinks.
I got you. But once you start going, then it's a new center, right?
Right. So now
So
what do you
then it
think?
doesn't
What do you think the odds are?
of what? Getting to the 30 or getting
Just describe the slot's chances. Like, what do you think is there a relationship? I mean,
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
yeah. Well,
I don't
you
know.
can pause the podcast here if you would like to think about it for a little while before I spoil it for you. But apparently, as it turns out, every slot on the wheel has an exact identical chance of being the one painted last. Even the slot right next to the 0. That's the real counterintuitive part, because the 60 and the 1, they each have a 50% chance of being painted immediately. Right?
Yeah.
But think about what has to happen in order for the 30 to be painted last.
You have to avoid it as well.
Well,
right?
You have to go all the way around the wheel to either the 31 or the 29.
Yeah.
And then go all the way back around the wheel, all the way until you get to the other one, right?
Yeah.
So that 30 has to have both slots painted right next to it anyway.
Yeah.
And so as it turns out, every slot on the wheel has an identical chance of being the last one painted. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that is weird. Even the ones that are right next to the 0, huh?
Right. Yeah, if you pick, I mean, most people wouldn't do this, but if you were like, oh, I think the 0 is, I think the 1 is going to be painted last.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like a 50-50 chance that it's immediately eliminated on the first flip. But in order for that to be the last one, you have to win the first toss, and then it has to go all the way around the wheel before it comes back to you. And it's pretty unlikely, because you start flipping, it's going to be heads, heads, tails, tails, heads, 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 tails, tails, tails. Like it's going to go like this a lot. So it's well, obviously, there's only a 1 in 60 chance that you're going to be the last one painted, because there's 60 slots.
That's still like weird. I feel like I'd have to go through the proof, because even if it's not like 30, like just something further away would seem to have a higher chance than.
Think about it, because in order for it to be 30, it has to get all the way to the 29 and then go back all the way around the wheel to get to the 31. That's
all that says to me is that their chances are really low, but I guess that is true.
It's extremely unlikely that any one is going to be the last slot. It's a 1 in 60 chance for every single one that they're going to be the last slot. But it is weird, because it has to go all the way around the wheel in order to cover everything but one. Anyway, I'm going to actually, maybe I can put this out there for the listeners. I love shit like that. I love puzzles like that. Seems like, Ben, you are into that too. Little fun thought experiments, right?
Yeah.
If you have puzzlers for us like that, please email help@thinkinglsat.com. I think that would be fun to.
It reminds me of Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, right? By Daniel Kahneman.
Totally.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. But like, you have these like gut reactions.
Yep.
Evolution has given us this like cool system that's really fast. It's not always accurate, but it's better to be certain about something and inaccurate than constantly questioning your reality.
This is how scientific thinkers think. I mean it when I say that Ben and I are people of science. We're open to the possibility that we're wrong. We're not just, we do make snap judgments all the time, but we're open to hearing alternative explanations and then changing our minds.
Yeah.
That's what I hope for all of our students as well. There actually is an LSAT tip in there. That student, Ben, who is just so sure they understand and just won't let go of answer choice B, and like they just want to explain to you over and over and over why B is a better answer,
and why LSAC is wrong.
And LSAC's wrong. you know, and then and you're trying to explain it to them, but they just won't listen. That's not the student who's going to improve the most. You have to be open to you have to be open to the possibility that you're wrong sometimes.
Yeah.